When we hear the word monster, our minds conjure images from myth and nightmare. But 500 million years ago, a real monster patrolled the primordial oceans. It was called Anomalocaris, a name that means abnormal shrimp. It had two great, spiked appendages in front of its mouth, a circular jaw lined with serrated teeth, and large, stalked eyes that gave it a panoramic view of its prey. This was no fantasy. It was one of evolution's first great predators, a creature assembled by the same blind, logical process that would one day lead to us. This is the first rule of our journey. The greatest monster maker of all time is not a storyteller, but a force of nature that has been shaping life for nearly 4 billion years. That process is evolution. It is a force that operates not with malice or intent, but with the cold, hard logic of survival. The monsters it creates are not born of magic. They are sculpted by necessity, forged in the crucible of changing environments, and assembled from the genetic scrap heap of what came before. To understand the monsters that the future might hold, we must first understand the rules of the game. We must dispel the notion that evolution is a conscious creator, aiming for complexity or perfection. It is, in reality, a simple yet powerful algorithm driven by 3 core principles: mutation, selection, and time. It all begins with mutation, the constant, random errors that occur when DNA is copied. These aren't grand transformations, but tiny, accidental typos in the genetic code. Most are harmless, many are fatal, but every so often, a mutation arises that confers a slight, almost imperceptible advantage. A single changed letter in a sequence of billions might grant an insect slightly better camouflage, a fish a slightly more efficient fin, or a mammal a slightly thicker coat. This is where natural selection, the ultimate editor of life's story, steps in with brutal efficiency. Think of the peppered moths in 19th century England. Before the Industrial Revolution, the vast majority were a pale, speckled color, perfectly camouflaged against the lichen-covered bark of trees. But as factories choked the air with pollution, the trees became blackened with soot. Suddenly, the pale moths stood out like beacons to predatory birds, while a rare, dark-colored variant, once a liability, was now perfectly hidden. The dark moths survived to breed, passing on their mutant gene. Within just a few decades, the population had almost entirely shifted from light to dark. Evolution doesn't think. It simply filters. This brings us to the crucial concept that natural selection is a filter, not a creator. It cannot conjure new designs out of thin air. It can only work with the raw material it is given, the existing biology of an organism. Imagine a car mechanic who can't order new parts. They can only tinker, modify, and repurpose what's already in the garage, a junkyard filled with components from a single ancient model. They could never build a jet engine, but by welding, bending, and improvising, they might just build a monstrous new kind of vehicle. Evolution is that mechanic. This is why we see such profound underlying similarities across the animal kingdom. The wing of a bat, the flipper of a whale, the leg of a horse, and the arm of a human all share the same fundamental bone structure. Look closely, and you can see the same 5-digit blueprint, inherited from a common ancestor. In the bat, evolution stretched the finger bones into impossibly long, delicate spars to support a wing. In the whale, it shortened and fused those same bones into a rigid, powerful flipper. In the horse, it discarded all but one digit, fusing the remaining bones into a single, robust column to withstand the force of running. Evolution did not invent a new limb for each. It modified the ancestral blueprint. This principle, known as homology, is fundamental. It tells us that the monsters of the future will not be entirely alien. They will be cousins, however distant and twisted, of the life that exists today. It also explains why a bird's wing and an insect's wing, despite serving the same function, are built so differently. The insect wing is an outgrowth of its exoskeleton, while the bird's is a modified limb. They are analogous structures, different solutions to the same problem, constrained by different starting materials. Evolution doesn't have a best way to build a wing. It has the most practical way, given what it has to work with. Furthermore, the creative potential of evolution is constrained by what is known as the genetic toolkit. All animals, from a jellyfish to a primate, share a common set of master control genes. These ancient genes, like the famous Hox genes, act as architects for the developing embryo. They lay down the basic body plan, dictating build a head here, sprout limbs there, and end the body here. They are the operating system of life, and while the applications can change, the core code remains remarkably consistent. This is why we don't see insects with internal skeletons or vertebrates with 8 legs. The fundamental architectural plans are deeply embedded in their heritage. To see the power and limitation of this toolkit, look no further than the fruit fly. Scientists have discovered a mutation in a single Hox gene called antennapedia. When this gene malfunctions, the fly makes a horrifying mistake. Instead of growing a pair of delicate antennae from its head, it grows a pair of fully formed, segmented legs. The instruction build antenna fails, and the system defaults to another instruction it knows well, build leg. The fly cannot invent a new appendage. It can only deploy parts from its existing catalog, sometimes in the wrong place. This is the very essence of a biological monster, not a creature of new design, but a familiar blueprint, twisted and reconfigured. Understanding these constraints is not about limiting our imagination. It is about grounding it in a reality that is, in many ways, stranger than fiction. The real wonder of evolution lies not in its ability to break the rules, but in the incredible, sometimes terrifying, diversity it can produce while working strictly within them. The future monsters of our world are already encoded, in fragments and possibilities, within the DNA of the life that surrounds us today. The monsters are not in the magic. They are in the mechanism. For the last few 100,000 years, a single species has dominated this planet with unprecedented force. Homo sapiens, with our oversized brains and opposable thumbs, have appointed ourselves the undisputed apex intelligence. But what if that reign were to end? Imagine a world, millions of years from now, where our cities have crumbled to dust, our legacy a mere geological whisper in the rock. In such a world, the niche of a globally dominant intelligent species would be vacant. Who or what would rise to claim it? The answer is not as simple as pointing to our closest relatives. Instead, we must look to a fascinating principle known as convergent evolution. This is the phenomenon where unrelated species independently evolve similar traits to solve similar problems. The streamlined, torpedo-like body of a shark, an ichthyosaur, and a dolphin is a classic example. But perhaps the most stunning case is the camera eye, which evolved independently in both vertebrates and cephalopods, 2 lineages separated by over 500 million years of evolution. The laws of physics and optics demand a single, elegant solution, and evolution, working with completely different starting materials, found it twice. Intelligence is no different. It is not a magical lightning strike that happened once in a single lineage of African apes. It is a biological tool, an adaptation for survival, and its seeds are scattered across the tree of life. Consider the octopus. These creatures are mollusks, more closely related to a snail than to us, yet they exhibit astonishing cognitive abilities. They can solve complex puzzles, use tools, and even display distinct personalities. Their intelligence is built on a completely different neurological architecture, an alien model of a mind. 2/3 of their neurons are in their 8 prehensile arms, each of which can act semi-independently. It is a distributed intelligence, a committee of minds. This unique biology gives them an incredible advantage. Their arms can taste and touch simultaneously, gathering a torrent of information from the environment. They have been observed carrying coconut shells across the seafloor, assembling them later as a portable shelter, a clear case of planning and tool use. Their ability to change color and texture in a fraction of a second is not just camouflage. It is a form of communication and embodied intelligence, a physical language written on their skin. In a post-human world, with oceans free from our interference, the octopus lineage has a tremendous head start, possessing a toolkit for manipulation and problem-solving that is, in many ways, superior to our own. But the oceans are not the only cradle for a potential successor. On land, another group has repeatedly demonstrated an intelligence that rivals primates. The corvids. This family of birds, including crows and ravens, possesses brains that are, relative to their body size, enormous. A crow's brain-to-body mass ratio is comparable to that of a chimpanzee. They are not just bird-brained. The New Caledonian crow, in particular, stands out as a master artisan. It will manufacture different types of tools from twigs and leaves, sometimes creating a complex, hooked instrument in a multi-stage process to extract beetle larvae from logs. This isn't just instinct. It's culture, with different populations having their own unique tool-making traditions. Their cognitive abilities go even further into the realm of abstract thought. In experiments modeled on Aesop's fable, crows have shown they understand water displacement, dropping stones into a tube to raise the water level and bring a floating treat within reach. They can plan for the future, not only hiding food but hiding their tools for later use. Perhaps most impressively, they demonstrate a rudimentary theory of mind, understanding that they need to be more careful about hiding their food if a potential thief is watching. This social cunning, this ability to model the mind of another, is a critical stepping stone towards higher intelligence. Yet there may be another, less obvious candidate, one that is currently thriving in our shadow, the raccoon. While they may not have the showy intelligence of a corvid, they possess a different, perhaps more crucial, set of skills. Their primary sense for understanding the world is touch, processed through their incredibly sensitive and dexterous front paws, which are packed with nerve endings. This tactile intelligence gives them a unique way of seeing the world, allowing them to pick locks, untie knots, and manipulate objects with a skill that few other animals can match. They are the ultimate generalists, able to eat almost anything and adapt to almost any environment, from pristine forests to the heart of our biggest cities. This adaptability is their secret weapon. While specialized animals are vulnerable to environmental change, the raccoon is a master of chaos. A world reshaped by humanity, and then abandoned by it, would be a perfect playground for a creature that thrives on disruption and novelty. Their innate curiosity and relentless problem-solving skills, combined with those primate-like paws, form a powerful evolutionary foundation. The selective pressures of a changing world could easily favor raccoons with even greater dexterity and more complex cognitive abilities, pushing them down a path of intelligence forged not in the stable forest, but in the unpredictable ruins of our own making. The final piece of the puzzle, the catalyst that could ignite the spark of intelligence in any of these candidates, lies in the social brain hypothesis. This theory posits that the primary driver for the evolution of large, complex brains is not the need to solve environmental problems, but the need to navigate the intricate and ever-shifting landscape of social life. Living in large groups requires immense cognitive horsepower. An individual needs to track alliances, rivalries, and social hierarchies. It is this social arms race that many scientists believe was the key pressure that drove the explosive growth of the human brain. Therefore, any future apex monster would almost certainly need to be a social creature first. Whether it's an octopus lineage that evolves colonial living, a society of corvids with complex politics and communication, or a troop of raccoons that learn to cooperate to solve bigger problems, the path to dominance is likely paved with community. The new apex will not be a lone genius, but a social strategist. The pressures of living together would be the whetstone upon which their intelligence is sharpened, generation after generation, until a new consciousness looks out upon a world it is ready to claim as its own. Our current geological epoch, the Anthropocene, is defined by the profound and often devastating impact of human activity. We see these changes as a catastrophe, a degradation of the natural world. But to evolution, this is simply a new set of environmental conditions, a new challenge. And where there is a challenge, there is an opportunity for life to adapt and innovate in ways that might seem monstrous to us. The creatures that will inherit our legacy may not be the ones that survive our world, but the ones that evolve to thrive in its ruins, mastering niches we have rendered uninhabitable for the life we know today. Consider the oceans. As global temperatures rise and agricultural runoff pours fertilizers into the sea, we are triggering massive algal blooms. When these blooms die and sink, they are decomposed by bacteria in a process that consumes vast amounts of oxygen, creating ever-expanding dead zones. For us, these are aquatic deserts. But what if poison wasn't poison anymore? Deep beneath the waves, clustered around hydrothermal vents, exist entire ecosystems that are completely independent of sunlight. Their bacteria derive energy from the toxic hydrogen sulfide spewing from the Earth's crust. They are the foundation of a food web that includes giant tube worms with blood-red plumes, ghostly crabs, and bizarre fish, all thriving in crushing pressure and total darkness. This process is called chemosynthesis, and as we create more anoxic, sulfide-rich environments in the upper oceans, the stage is set for this alien biology to go mainstream. Evolution could favor the rise of new food webs where creatures breathe sulfur instead of oxygen. Imagine vast, floating mats of chemosynthetic bacteria, forming the basis for a new ecosystem of monstrous grazers and predators. These creatures would be completely alien to us, their metabolisms fine-tuned to a chemical cocktail that would kill nearly everything alive today. They would be the children of our pollution, monsters born from our own waste. The challenge of our legacy is not just chemical but physical. One of the most durable markers of our time will be the staggering amount of plastic we have produced. We see it as inert, indestructible garbage. But in the long run of evolutionary time, nothing is truly indigestible. A massive, untapped energy source like plastic will not go unexploited forever. In 2016, scientists discovered Ideonella sicyensis, a bacterium that had evolved a unique enzyme, PEtase, capable of breaking down plastic bottles. It had learned to eat our refuse. This is just the beginning. Through a process called horizontal gene transfer, bacteria can swap useful genes like plasmids, passing on new abilities as if they were trading tools. Over thousands of years, this plastic digesting trait could spread, eventually being incorporated into larger organisms. We can envision a future where landfills are no longer static monuments to our wastefulness, but are instead dynamic ecosystems. Imagine giant, slug-like creatures, perhaps descended from fungi or worms, that slowly crawl across these mountains of refuse, their bodies housing symbiotic colonies of these bacteria. They would be the ultimate recyclers, the janitors of the Anthropocene, turning our toxic legacy into the very fuel of their existence. But plastic is not the most extreme waste we have created. In the sealed sarcophagus of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, scientists made a discovery that defies belief. They found species of black fungi that were not only surviving the intense radiation but appeared to be drawn to it. These radiotrophic fungi contain high amounts of melanin, the same pigment in human skin, which allows them to absorb and convert gamma radiation into chemical energy for growth. They are, in a very real sense, eating radiation. Life has learned to feed on the energy of a splitting atom. This opens up a terrifying and awe-inspiring possibility. If life can learn to metabolize ionizing radiation, what other impossible energy sources could it conquer? A future world, scarred by nuclear events or waste storage, could become a garden for these monstrous life forms. We can imagine entire ecosystems, from fungi to the creatures that graze on them, all powered not by the sun, but by the steady decay of our most dangerous legacy. They would be living proof that life's opportunism knows no bounds, thriving in a world we rightly see as a vision of hell. Finally, consider the toxic legacy of our industry, heavy metals. Lead, mercury, cadmium, and arsenic have poisoned soils and waterways around the world. But some life has already found a way. Certain hyperaccumulator plants have evolved the ability to absorb these toxic metals from the soil and sequester them in their leaves and stems, often as a defense against herbivores. Evolution could push this adaptation into the animal kingdom. Imagine a burrowing, insect-like creature that consumes contaminated soil, extracting the heavy metals and incorporating them into its exoskeleton. Generation after generation, this process could create a monster with a carapace of burnished, metallic lead, its body laced with a cocktail of poisons that would kill any predator that tried to eat it. It would be a living mine, a biological machine that cleanses the soil by turning our deadliest industrial toxins into its own monstrous armor. Its very existence would be a testament to life's ability to take the very worst of what we create and turn it into a tool for survival. The monsters of the ruined world, therefore, will not be curses or abominations. They will be the logical, evolutionary response to the conditions we have created. They will be the chemosynthesizers, the plastivores, the radiation eaters, and the metal-armored scavengers. Their appearance would be grotesque, their diets horrifying, but in the context of a planet healing itself, they would be a necessary, monstrous form of salvation. They will be the masters of the extremes, life's terrifying and beautiful answer to us. Life does not merely exist within its environment. It actively shapes it. 2.5 billion years ago, a humble bacterium called cyanobacteria evolved a new trick, photosynthesis. In doing so, it began to release a toxic, corrosive waste product into the atmosphere. That waste product was oxygen. Over hundreds of millions of years, this microscopic life form completely remade the planet, poisoning the old world to create a new one. This is the ultimate power of biology. Not just to survive the world, but to remake it. The monsters of the deep future may be those that learn to wield this power on a terrifying new scale. The blueprint for such a future can be seen today in the colonies of social insects. An individual ant or termite is insignificant, but a colony acts as a single, distributed intelligence, a superorganism. Their incredible feats of engineering are not coordinated by a central command, but through a principle called swarm intelligence. Each insect follows simple rules, responding to chemical trails and the actions of its neighbors. This allows for the construction of colossal, climate-controlled termite mounds that function as external lungs, fundamentally altering the local ecosystem. But some superorganisms go even further, becoming external digestive systems. Leafcutter ants don't eat the leaves they harvest. They carry them deep into their subterranean nests, some of which can be the size of a house, and use them to cultivate vast fungal gardens. The ants feed the fungus, and the fungus feeds the ants. The entire colony is a single, sprawling stomach, a self-sustaining agricultural machine that has been practicing farming for 50 million years. Now, project this principle into the future. Imagine a eusocial species that evolves beyond farming fungus, and instead learns to cultivate mineral-secreting bacteria. Over millennia, their nests would not be made of mud, but of biologically generated cement, or even woven with metallic threads. The superorganism would become a geological monster, a living mountain that breathes and grows, its collective intelligence dedicated to the single-minded pursuit of expansion. The second path to bioengineering mastery lies not in collective action, but in radical self-modification. The history of life is a history of theft. The very cells that make up our bodies are chimeras, haunted by the ghosts of ancient bacteria. Billions of years ago, an ancestral microbe engulfed another, smaller one. But instead of digesting it, it enslaved it. That enslaved bacterium became the mitochondrion, the power plant that energizes every complex cell on Earth. The same thing happened again when a cell engulfed a photosynthetic bacterium, which became the chloroplast, the engine of all plant life. This is endosymbiosis, evolution by absorption. This ancient process could be weaponized in the future. Imagine a predator that evolves beyond simple teeth and claws. It could develop specialized tissues that house colonies of bioluminescent bacteria, allowing it to flash patterns of hypnotic light to lure prey into a trap. But why stop there? Imagine a large, reptilian creature that evolves to have symbiotic algae living directly within its translucent scales. It could lie in the sun, absorbing energy like a plant, supplementing its diet and reducing the need to hunt. It would be a creature halfway between animal and plant, a monstrous fusion of kingdoms. We can push this principle even further. The air we breathe is nearly 80% nitrogen, but most animals cannot use it directly to build proteins. They must get it from their food. But some bacteria can fix nitrogen, pulling it from the air and turning it into a usable form. A future bioengineer could evolve specialized organs, much like the root nodules on a legume, that house colonies of these nitrogen-fixing bacteria. Such a creature would be almost completely self-sufficient. With photosynthetic skin and a nitrogen-fixing gut, it could generate its own energy from sunlight and its own protein from the air. It would be a walking ecosystem, a monster that has freed itself from the food chain entirely. Life has also mastered other forces. The electric eel is not magic. It is biology pushed to an extreme. It has evolved columns of modified muscle cells called electrocytes each one acting as a tiny biological battery. By discharging thousands of these cells in perfect unison, it can generate a jolt of over 600 volts, enough to stun a horse. This is a formidable weapon, but evolution could refine it into something far more terrifying. Instead of a single, stunning blast, a future predator could evolve the ability to generate a persistent, crackling electrical field around its body, an aura of energy that would paralyze or kill anything that came too close. This electrical sense could also become a form of perception. Many fish already use weak electrical fields to navigate and see in murky water through electrolocation. A future apex predator could evolve this sense to an incredible degree of acuity, able to detect the faint bioelectric field of its prey's own beating heart from a distance. It would hunt not by sight or smell, but by sensing the very spark of life in the darkness, a monster that sees in electricity. These creatures, whether colossal superorganisms or solitary symbiotic chimeras, represent the ultimate expression of life's power. Their actions would not be merely biological, but geological. The vast, mineralized nests of a future insect colony would persist in the rock record for eons, as distinct as any coral reef. The unique biochemical signature of a nitrogen-fixing predator would alter the chemistry of entire ecosystems. They would not be just monsters. They would be the architects of the next world, the living mountains and walking power plants that will define the deep future, leaving an indelible planetary-scale scar to prove they were here. Our imaginations tend to populate the future with monsters we can see, towering beasts with fearsome claws and gaping jaws. We are evolutionarily primed to fear the large predator, the threat that is visible and immediate. But in the grand theater of evolution, the most significant actors are often the ones we cannot see. The most plausible, the most immediate, and the most dangerous monsters that evolution is creating are not lurking in some distant future. They are here now, evolving at a terrifying rate. They are the unseen monsters, the microbes, the bacteria, and the viruses locked in a relentless evolutionary arms race with us. The first of these monsters is being forged in the fires of our own medicine. The discovery of antibiotics was a miracle that pulled us back from the brink, turning lethal infections into minor inconveniences. But in our eagerness to defeat disease, we have unleashed one of the most powerful selective pressures the planet has ever seen. Every time we use an antibiotic, we are running a massive evolutionary experiment. We are systematically eliminating the competition for the hardiest, most dangerous strains of bacteria. The result is the inevitable rise of superbugs, bacteria that are resistant to all of our current medicines. This is not just simple adaptation. It's a genetic black market. Bacteria can trade resistance genes on small, circular pieces of DNA called plasmids. Through a process called horizontal gene transfer, one species of bacteria can pass a resistance gene to a completely different species, like a veteran soldier handing a powerful weapon to a new recruit. A single gene, like the one named NDM1, can confer resistance to an entire class of last-resort antibiotics. This gene was first found in one species of bacteria in India. It has now spread to dozens of species on every continent. We are facing a future where a simple cut or a routine surgery could once again become a death sentence. The second unseen monster emerges from our relentless encroachment on the natural world. For millennia, vast ecosystems have existed as reservoirs for countless novel viruses, each one perfectly adapted to its animal host. There is a constant low-level viral chatter, as these pathogens occasionally jump between animal species. But as we cut down forests, build roads into the wilderness, and push animal populations into smaller and smaller spaces, we are amplifying that chatter into a roar. We are creating a planetary mixing bowl for viruses, dramatically increasing the chances of a zoonotic spillover event, the moment a virus jumps from its animal host to a human. This is how pandemics are born. HIV, Ebola, and COVID-19 are all the result of such events. Climate change is pouring gasoline on this fire, forcing animals to migrate into new regions and creating even more opportunities for viruses to meet new hosts. The monster we are creating here is a virus with a perfect storm of traits. We have already seen the blueprint. The 1918 Spanish flu combined the high transmissibility of a common cold with a shockingly high mortality rate, killing upwards of 50 million people. Now imagine a new virus that combines that transmissibility with the long, asymptomatic incubation period of HIV, allowing it to spread silently through the global population for months before anyone even knows it exists. Our success as a species, our ability to travel anywhere on the planet in under 24 hours, becomes our greatest vulnerability. A new virus could be in dozens of countries before the first case is even identified. It would not be a monster that hunts us in the dark. It would be a monster that travels with us in broad daylight, a silent passenger on every plane and a silent guest in every home. The unseen monsters do not need claws or fangs. Their weapons are replication and transmission. They are the silent predators our own civilization is beckoning out of the shadows. But there is a third unseen monster, one far stranger and perhaps more terrifying than any virus or bacteria. It is not even truly alive. It is a prion, an infectious protein. Prion are misfolded versions of normal proteins found in the brain. When a prion enters the body, it acts as a template, causing the normal, healthy proteins to misfold in the same way. This triggers a slow, unstoppable chain reaction, a cascade of corruption that turns the brain into a spongy, useless mass. There is no cure. There is no treatment. It is always fatal. We first encountered this monster with mad cow disease in cattle and its human equivalent, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. Now, a new prion disease is spreading like a wildfire through deer and elk populations in North America. It is called chronic wasting disease. The prion are shed in the animal's saliva, urine, and feces, and they can persist in the soil for years, possibly decades, remaining infectious. They can even be taken up by plants. They are nearly indestructible, resistant to heat, radiation, and disinfectants that would kill any other pathogen. The question that haunts scientists is not if, but when, a prion disease like this will make the jump to humans. A monster that can survive in the soil for years, that cannot be killed by conventional means, and that causes an incurable, 100% fatal neurodegenerative disease is a threat of a different order. It pushes the very definition of what a pathogen can be. It is not life attacking life. It is a corrupted shape, a biological idea, a pattern that kills. These are the true monsters of the Anthropocene. The superbugs we arm with our own medicines, the pandemic viruses we unleash from the world's last wild places, and the indestructible prion that spreads silently through the environment. They are not hypothetical beasts of the distant future. They are the clear and present danger, the invisible predators that our own civilization is actively creating, nurturing, and empowering. They are the evolutionary echo of our own success. Throughout this journey, we have explored the monstrous forms that life might take. We have imagined new intelligent species rising to take our place, extremophiles feasting on our toxic legacy, and bioengineers remaking the world in their own image. We have uncovered the unseen microbial predators evolving in our shadow. But in all of this, we have treated them as consequences of a blind, unfeeling process. We have missed the prime mover, the single greatest, most disruptive, and most creative evolutionary force on Earth today. That force is not blind, but sees. It is not random, but acts with intention. That force is us. The final act of our story is not about a monster that might evolve in the future. It is about the monster that is already here. It is a reflection. For billions of years, the primary drivers of evolution were geological and climatic. But in the geological blink of an eye, that has changed. We are now living in the Anthropocene, a new epoch defined by the fact that human activity is the dominant influence on the planet. We are the global selection event. Our cities, with their concrete canyons and perpetual heat, have become evolutionary laboratories, favoring pigeons, rats, and insects that are bolder, cleverer, and more heat-tolerant. In the oceans, our fishing nets act as a relentless filter, scooping up the largest and healthiest fish. The evolutionary consequence? We are actively selecting for fish that mature faster and at a smaller size, the ones that can reproduce before they are caught. We are breeding a world of runts. From the songbirds that must sing at a higher pitch to be heard over our traffic, to the plants that evolve to tolerate our polluted soils, we are conducting the largest, most uncontrolled evolutionary experiment in planetary history. We are the filter. We are the environment. We are the hand of God. and we are not a gentle one. But our role extends beyond being a mere environmental pressure. We are on the cusp of seizing the reins of evolution itself. With the revolutionary technology of CRISPR, we can now edit the genetic code with a precision that was once the domain of science fiction. It allows us to snip out undesirable genes and insert new ones, rewriting the very blueprint of an organism. And with this tool, we have created something even more powerful: the gene drive. A gene drive is a genetic element that cheats the laws of inheritance, ensuring that a specific trait is passed down to nearly all offspring, not just half. It can force a genetic change through an entire population in just a few generations. Imagine releasing a handful of mosquitoes with a gene drive that makes them immune to malaria. Within a few years, the entire species could be altered, potentially saving millions of human lives. But what if there are unforeseen consequences? What if the edited gene has other effects on the ecosystem we can't predict? A gene drive is a biological fire, one that, once released, may be impossible to extinguish. We have built a tool that can overwrite natural selection, and we are only just beginning to contemplate the consequences of using it. And even this is not the final step. We are moving from editing life to creating it. The field of synthetic biology is not about modifying existing DNA, but about writing entirely new genetic code on a computer and transplanting it into a living cell. In 2010, scientists did just that, creating the first self-replicating organism with a completely synthetic genome. We have made life. We have moved from being the editors of the book of life to being its authors, capable of writing entirely new pages, new chapters, and new creatures that have never existed. This brings us to the final, unsettling conclusion. The question is no longer just, what monsters will evolution create? The question we must now confront is, what monsters will we create? For 4 billion years, evolution worked through the slow, brutal, but ultimately stable process of trial and error. Its creations were tested against the unforgiving reality of the environment. But the life we create will be tested only against the limits of our own imagination and the fallibility of our own desires. We can now dream of creating bacteria that produce biofuel, but also bacteria that produce a deadly neurotoxin. We can dream of resurrecting extinct species, but also of creating entirely new ones as pets, novelties, or weapons. We have become the architects of life, but we are working without a blueprint, driven by short-term goals and often blind to the long-term consequences. The power to direct evolution is the ultimate power, and with it comes the ultimate responsibility. As we look at the strange creatures of Earth's past and speculate about the monstrous forms of its future, we must recognize that the most significant chapter is the one being written right now. Are we wise enough for this power? Are we mature enough to wield the fire of the gods? Or are we still just the same clever, frightened ape that first learned to sharpen a stone? The greatest monster maker is no longer a blind, indifferent force of nature. It is a conscious, intelligent, and deeply flawed species that is just beginning to understand the terrifying scope of its own power. All the creatures we have imagined, the intelligent octopus, the plastic-eating slug, the self-sufficient chimera, are merely possibilities waiting in the wings. The true monster, the one with the real power to shape the future, is the one making the decisions. The monster is the one in the mirror,